Hey, I'm Cole.
I'm Kenyon.
I'm Kwame.
And I review bad self-help.
And we put it into our daily lives so you don't have to.
This week is another special week. We got a guest on. We're just three dudes, so we don't really get into women's self-help that much. And there's a ton of women's self-help out there, and it's all pretty bad. So this week we got on Hatty Preston.
I'm Hatty. I'm an actress from London who's over here. I have no idea what she's doing over here, but over here. Like bits and bobs back home.
Okay, we just start. You sound like we got a gun to your head.
No, I don't.
This sounds like we're holding you hostage.
No, but no one wants to be like
they're gonna be like, did they kidnap a woman? I just want you to read. I was like, just introduce yourself. I want you to just read the note that says, "I'm fine if $6,000
bits
wired."
and bobs and Mom, I love you.
Christ.
What is bits and bobs too? Oh, for any listeners. Yeah, for any listeners, Hattie is British, so
it's
from bits
if you're
and bobs.
confused.
Yeah, sometimes it does feel like you're trying a little bit.
No, I know it does.
Yeah.
I think I've never understood when people come over here because I've got British friends who've come over here and picked up a bit of an accent, like an American one.
Okay.
Like they start saying their R's. I'm like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
it's your super skill. Like, I'm like Mary fucking Poppins when I come over here.
Yeah,
I get
just
so
automatically
British.
Assume that you're better at everything.
Exactly. I did college for a year out here in Virginia.
Did you just become a professor?
I
Like,
honestly,
did you just walk in and
I am
you
like,
own the
they're
play?
and they're like, Hattie, what do you think? And it was like, and we'll close the seminar on what Hattie thinks. Like, I'm not very bright back home. Like, I'm not that smart. Over here, I was like the gospel.
I wonder if it's like genetically, like we still have like that colonist brain.
I think you do. You hear it,
the
yeah.
Overlord's voice, and we're just sitting here like, oh, the master's here.
Mommy's back to feed us. Yeah.
Even when we did the American accent, I was like, they can sound like us.
Yeah,
Isn't that cool? Like I was like, that's
It's almost it was a more sophisticated American accent.
yeah. No,
It was like a Virginia accent, but I was like, oh, that's like a smart redneck.
Yeah, such a smart, rich, racist woman. Yeah, I've nailed it.
I pay taxes on tea. Are you gonna like me now? Like that's such funny. I just want British people to like me so fucking much.
Yeah.
Also, the first thing she did when she got here was make tea.
Yeah, which was again, it was a little
because
fucking
it's
much.
completely necessary, and also my voice hurts,
She
and also
made
it's delicious.
tea, and then she also made an Irish person sit in the other room. It was like, can you stop being so fucking British?
Oh, not if he's here. Not if he's here.
We had to
You can fuck right off. Yeah.
She rode in on a little Indian boy.
on her way from burning down a Protestant church.
But I tipped, so like, grow up. I tipped. I'm getting it.
So you were an actor. You lived in London.
Yeah,
and now,
born and bred, and now I'm in Chicago,
okay.
playing around in the comedy scene.
So what happened? What made you choose Chicago? What made you in a living room with us? Right now?
That's a good question. Initially, I came over here for Second City just to do some writing classes, because I think if acting becomes your profession at some point, you lose the love for it quite hard and fast. So it was more just to give myself like a few months break and enjoy it again and remember why I liked it in the first place. Okay. And then it all sort of spiraled. And here I still am, sort of 9 months later.
So how did it spiral? Like, what's the Second City darkness?
Do you know what?
You're just sitting there, you're improvising too much. And
then it all happened. I loved Second City, but then I did.
Did you develop a heroin addiction to get through the shows?
Yeah, big time. That was what I came over to do.
Second City class is an addiction.
Yeah, to be edgy.
It's hurting your friends and family, and you
Do
cannot
you know what,
stop.
I really liked improv. I was very impressed by improv. Like, it's a very cool thing. I just didn't, and this is awful, and I'm saying this, I don't really like the people.
No, they're
I really don't like improv.
They're culty, right? It's like a weird culty.
If you do improv and you listen to this, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah,
if you'd stop
I'm
listening.
so sorry. Like, yeah.
I mean, it's definitely like an economy built on insecure white people.
Yeah.
Like I did a show at Second City last night. I'm looking around. I'm like, this is made with just parents' money. This isn't the
totally.
show. This is just heaps of like you're paying this class. So everyone goes, yay you.
Well, it's all. And the thing is like bad stand up. You can at least be like, oh, I get what you're trying to do. You're failing, but I get what you're trying to do. Like bad improv is like, I don't even know what the fuck this is.
You started off doing. I know.
I don't know if it's a correlation, but every stand up comedian who's been pushed out of the scene for being a rapist was also an improv person.
There you go.
I don't want to say, I mean, if we're probably going to title the podcast "All Improvers Are Racist" and rapists, and they're also racist. That's just because they just improvise the scene. They're like, they go where the scene takes you. If the scene takes you behind a dumpster, it takes you behind a dumpster. Okay.
Just say yes. Always say yes. Yes, and.
It's a goddamn mantra.
Hey, we've all got something in trouble with yes, Andy.
You're doing Second City.
But I did like on a whim.
Spirals out.
Of a whim, I took stand-up class, like just like on the spur. I was like, do you know, wouldn't it be cool to go back to England and say, oh, I did 5 minutes of stand-up, because Second City did this course, it culminated in a 5-minute stand-up piece. And I was like, it would just be cool to say, oh, I did a 5 minutes. That would be fun. And I took Marty DeRosa's class, and that was
he's
sort
hilarious.
Of me done, really. He, I did open mic on my second week. Marty is an absolute rock star and a wonderful man, and that was sort of me done. I really liked it, so I'm just
now you're here
giving it a swing and see how it goes. But I have no plan. There was no plan.
Oh, great! Well,
in the world,
you're in good company. Don't ask
me about plans.
Our plan is we're gonna make it in the Canadian podcast game, hopefully.
Number 138 in Canada.
Sensational.
Number 138 in Canada.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah, no big deal.
For a
Canada,
day.
thank you for making the fucking right choice again. Universal healthcare, our podcast, solid as shit. Okay.
Fit as fuck, Prime Minister.
Oh, hot as
Oh my god.
fuck.
I like him. I like the French guy too. The French president.
Macron. Yeah.
Macron. This dude fucked his high school teacher. Dude.
Did he really?
And married her.
Yeah.
And married her.
Macron fucked his high school teacher. Is he
Legend.
currently married to her?
Yeah, he's married her.
Legend.
No, dude,
Absolute
they were
legend.
in love, and then she was like talking about like how mature he was, and he's like, we're gonna hold off till I get out of high school. Married his teacher. Goddamn, he's gonna fix Europe. All right, he's gonna fucking. That should have been his campaign slogan, like whatever the other guy says. He's like, I
fucked my teacher.
I married my dream.
That might be the hottest porn plot. Is a student fucks teacher and becomes president.
Yeah.
It's a goddamn leader.
It's a long one. It'd be a long video, but like worth
Is
it.
anyone going to make it to the part where he becomes president? Like, who's waiting for that?
I'm just like edging for 32 years. Just fucking
horny young student teaches Europe a lesson.
Anyway, so you don't have a plan, but we have a
We're
plan,
good.
and we got
You
some
have a plan.
tips to help.
Yeah, we have.
I don't know. So you're talking about a man. What's your dating life?
My dating life is picking up a little bit, but it's on the quieter side. There's been like recent developments which are fun, but
Gotcha.
But yes, I don't know. I have no plan with that either. I'm horrible at relationships.
Were you
Great.
successful at dating in Europe?
Pardon?
Yeah, did you date a lot?
Yeah, I mean, I know. Yeah.
I heard a rumor
back
that
in
you
England.
dated a rugby player.
Yeah, but he was a dick. Like not
You
not
mean the
like
guy that
A,
pushes people down and beats them is suddenly not a sensitive man?
But you know what the worst part? He was a short rugby guy, so he's got all the
He's got
worst
something to
bits.
prove.
Yeah, it's like he's got something to prove, and there's all that like, it was just a bit much. He's like, rugby's rugby, but
Was he a professional? Like
No.
How big is rugby?
He just pushed people down to the park.
Well, how big is it over there? You can be like
beat men.
You can be like a professional rugby player. In
He
the
wasn't.
UK,
He'd
right?
have been called like semi-professional because he earned on game days, but not to train. I think is how it worked. So he would have been semi-professional, I suppose. But
Okay.
But my dad played
rugby's like a
rugby
big
for England,
sport?
so I was like growing up in a rugby house.
It's like a big sport over there.
Yeah,
like
big
baseball
one.
kind of- okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever wish you could change him during your relationship?
Seamless. I tried
yeah.
and failed.
Very smooth.
Failed.
Yeah,
I think there's like a little, even the girls who are like, I would never do that. I would there's a little bit in you that's always like, oh, that'll get better. That little niggle will go away. I can iron that fucker out.
kinda
Can
like-
you
I feel
can you say that in front of
It almost
Colleen?
sounded like she said,
Yeah.
that little nigger
God,
will
no.
go away.
It's
I
a
was
niggle.
Jesus
Niggle.
Christ.
Gotcha. You
Oh
ruined
my
it.
God. Oh my God.
Ooh.
We are
Call the press.
The British are doing things a little bit different.
This was all just a setup.
Niggle.
You're done. Oh yeah. Wait, you said it again?
Jesus.
You know what? We call him. Put an American at the end of that when you say that, all right?
Good start. Punchy
To be fair, that
start.
is actually just the English way to say African American.
No, it isn't.
Cute way to say it.
What is the? What are your racial?
we just
what's-
don't talk
what's your
about them.
racist terms? Let's just swap them.
I'm not going to say my racist terms. One of them is actually gets you into trouble over here. But no, Americans get into trouble in England because what do you call your corner stores, like the corner shops that sell like wine and cigarettes and stuff?
Bodega.
So there's somewhere in Florida, somewhere in America, they call them packies, like package stores.
Oh,
no, they don't.
No, they do not.
Because we had an American guy at drama school come over and he was like, "Oh, we're going to go to the Packy and get some
That
wine."
was
And we were
his
like,
own-
"Oh my god!"
That was his own
That
slang.
is what he calls.
You can't.
Yeah, no one. Also, that could only come from.
Okay, cool. So I actually
Yeah.
3 to 4 American races. Cool.
We do
But
not
that
call
was the
them
one
Packy.
that we were like, "You absolutely cannot go out into the world saying that word."
So we picked up A Woman's Guide to Changing Her Man
Cool.
for you by
Thank you.
Michelle Weiner Davis.
Okay.
And you might think it looks kind of old, right?
It does.
But this was written in the 2000s,
Okay.
so it's pretty up to date.
Good. So women are still trying to change their men. That's good
Oh
to
yeah,
know.
and you might know her from the other book she wrote called "Change Your Life and Everyone in It."
That just sounds like moving, like I did. That's what I did.
She's really obsessed, I guess, with changing.
Yeah.
Manipulating everyone around her. I mean, that's one way to put it. How to change everyone? Professional sociopath.
God, she's
How
a
to
wizard.
Yeah,
Amazing.
and she devotes this book to her husbund Jim,
Oh,
whom
poor
I
guy.
love more with each passing year.
And change. Each passing year of
Each
change.
passing year, I make him better and better.
Because this book is working.
Like that iOS update where he fucking hangs out with my friends now.
I really hated him in year 7 when I made him get into flowers and gardening. I really started to come
It's a really
around.
good year.
So she separates the book into 3 parts. Part 1 is ready. Part 2 is aim. Part 3 is fire.
Jesus,
What?
that's so aggressive.
It's killing your husband. That's what it's murder
What
murder
you
your
need to do
husband.
is kill who he is. What you need to do, find who he is and murder it.
No, you were not married to
dead
Jim.
now.
She
You were
says-
married to what you want Jim to be.
She says the only man incapable of changing is a dead man.
It's at the end of the book. So that's how
Yeah,
it ends.
no, we're the more aggressive gender, right? We're the more aggressive gender, I think. Jesus.
Jesus.
This is also the first woman-based self-help book we've read, and it just opens with death. It just opens
your
with
husband.
absolutely-
Murder, yeah. Ready and fight. Right,
Well,
okay.
that is fun to note the contrast between like all the crazy man self help is like, nah, man, you like manipulate women and do all this crazy stuff, and then the women crazy stuff is like, no, just kill him. Just shoot him.
It's unemotional. We've written it down. Just kill
Well, that's
him.
like the difference between like a man freaks out, like punches somebody, whereas a woman always like poison him. You
Yeah,
know what I
yeah,
mean? It's like
yeah.
a very thought out, manipulative.
But it's like Gone Girl. I remember reading Gone Girl and being like, oh, yeah. I would do that.
Some people praised
Like-
her as like the hero in that.
I thought she was brilliant.
She's not brilliant.
Yeah,
She's a
I thought she was
monster.
absolutely
Some
brilliant.
people look at Gone Girl like a self-help,
But it's not. I saw the people.
Wait,
who
so
were-
I actually don't know what you're talking
Oh my god.
the gist of it is like
brilliant.
his wife like fakes. I mean, it's a huge spoiler, but whatever. His wife goes missing. Everybody thinks he killed her, and he has like no idea why. And it turns out that she was just unhappy in the relationship.
Oh.
So she faked her death and made it
Okay.
look like he murdered her, so that he would go to prison for murdering her. And then at the end of the movie, she comes back. I don't know if the book is different. But at the end of the movie, she comes back and she makes it because he makes like this whole plea on television or whatever the fuck. Because he realizes that like she did this, and so she comes back and it's seen as like, oh, she was found or whatever the fuck, and they end up like staying together.
That's a
I'm
horrific
gonna-
story.
no, I'm
That's
gonna-
an abusive relationship.
Sorry.
So he was like, if you don't appreciate me, I will put you in prison for
No,
murder.
this is what's so brilliant about this is the little tiny bit that Kwame is very sweetly left out when he said she was unhappy in her relationship or shit. He was cheating on her with a woman about 10 years younger than her, like brazenly and a lot and very regularly, and making
Which
her
means he
feel
deserves to go to prison for murder.
So she planned this beautiful thing that framed him for her own murder. She put him through hell and back, ruined everything in his life, took everything he had, came back and was like, came back and sat opposite and was like, you need me.
Yeah,
And it was
honestly,
brilliant.
that movie should be called A Woman's Guide to Changing Her Man. 'Cause-
A woman's guide to actual justice. That's what we should be.
She kills a man in the movie.
Yeah, but
She
he had it
runs
coming.
away
He had it coming.
because she has to make it look like.
So what
when
did-
she,
what did
when
the
she
man
comes
do?
back, she has to make it look like she
So
escaped
what did the
from
man do?
somebody.
Which man? Her
The
husband?
one that she killed.
Oh, he was just a bit of a sap. Like, he had it coming.
Yeah.
He was,
wasn't
he
going
was a
anywhere.
guy who was into her, but she has to make it look like she was kidnapped.
Oh,
and
so
escaped.
his big
she
problem
murders
was he
him.
was a weak man who
Yeah.
was
So
in love?
she
So you're
murders
saying
him.
a weak man who falls for someone deserves to die.
Sometimes they're just not going to benefit anyone in the long
She
term. and it's for
murders
the
an
greater
innocent
good.
guy,
Yeah.
and then comes back to her husband. The
Yeah.
end of the movie, he's like,
I'm
look,
scared in
he's
the middle
like,
of this pot. I'm checking my beer, motherfucker. I think someone's gonna.
but you have to give up. The husband did change his behavior at the end. He was
And
it's
she
monstrous.
did it.
He-
At the end of the movie, she tells him she's pregnant,
stopped
and
cheating.
he's like, he looks at her face like, you're evil, and she's like, what are you gonna do? And they go outside to like meet.
What
the
are
new-
This
you gonna
reminds me
do?
of my first relationship kind of a lot. Right. You got the Jesus Christ.
It's monstrous. It's a monstrous story. Just
Yeah, so it's like,
person.
is that what's worse, that or like you get a little mad, you throw a cup across? Like what's the if we had to pick? All right.
Hers was just beautiful.
Yeah, so she says, if someone were to tell you you could have better, more meaningful communication with your partner, that you could tug and touch him without his thinking sex was imminent, or you could get him to realize that
tug and touch. What?
Tug,
you mean?
like play
like
with
a
him.
penis?
Like cuddle?
Fiddling.
touch.
You said
maybe
tug and
Okay,
touch.
you said
I
tug
said
and
hug and
job?
touch.
Because that'd be a little
and
weird
touch.
where it's like pulling his dick and he always wants to fuck every time.
Yeah,
Like,
hug
yeah.
and touch. That
Yeah,
makes sense.
and get him to clean the house. Wouldn't you want to know how? If we are so determined in our mind to change our men, why are we so lousy at it? And it's time for you to stop relying solely on words to be heard. It's time to learn alternative methods for getting through to him. And that's because men don't like being told what to do, so you need to learn man-friendly methods of persuasion.
We all
Like
know
a
that.
dog.
No, but no, it's not. All girls, all little girls, I think, would say that they have had that conversation with their mum where she's like, just make him feel like he decided it. Like there is there is that thing where you're like, you have to, every little girl, every like teenage girl, you know that as much as you might know the thing that is the thing that we ought to be doing, if you say that, you've lost the room. So
do you think that's true? Is it from a woman perspective?
I don't personally think that's true. Like somebody said that.
I think you'd be amazed how many times a woman, whoever it may be, mother sister, has. I'm going to use the word manipulated a situation to make it feel like it's been a little bit your idea to do with it.
So what's like a way you would do that?
Yeah, do you have man-friendly persuasion
this is why
techniques?
it's just so brilliant that you brought me in, because I'm fucking dead for relationships. So I think my thing's always been I've never been someone in a relationship who needs us both to do the same thing. So I think my trump card has always, I hate using that word, but my trump card has always been, right, fine, well, I'm going to go to Italy on holiday then. By myself.
Wait, what do you mean you guys don't do the same thing? What do you mean?
Like, I don't mind if we as a couple don't do the same thing. So if the thing at question is like,
I'd be a little offended if my girlfriend went to a giant vacation in Italy by herself. I'm like, you know what? I thought I was supposed to be the special person.
But are you trying to get him to go to Italy with you when you say that?
Eventually they'll be like, oh yeah, I do really want to. But you like, you never badger. If you badger about it, then you're done, because then you become, and also you feel like
maybe you need to date a media man, because I do whatever they want. To the point where they don't respect me.
If anyone was like, yeah, I bought us tickets, they'd I'm like, I don't know. I think I was gonna watch the game with the boys this weekend. So
I wish. I want to get to that level of confidence. I can do anything. God. It's like, do you want to walk across the coals to come cuddle with me? I'd be like, yeah, I think that's a good. It seems like an even trade.
That's at the beginning, though. You get whatever you want at the beginning, and then it all changes. But
oh no. Not with the Kenyan. Anyone listening, you got the Kenyan package. Do whatever. With dignity gone, perfect boyfriend. I'll do literally anything to the point where I'm just kind of a human doormat.
Yeah. And she says, once you're armed with these male-friendly methods, no matter what you've been told by experts, friends, or even your partner, you really can change everything about your man. Okay. And you can create the relationship you've always wanted. And if you're thinking, yeah, right, the only way that'll work is if I trade him in, you're wrong. First, because trade-ins aren't practical.
What does that mean?
New men need training too.
What about people like their cars the whole fucking time? I'm thinking about putting Jeff down. He just really
new man. He hasn't been broken in enough. I don't think. What is trading him in? What is that, like getting a new boyfriend?
Yeah, finding someone else.
That's an evil way to treat a person. To be like, yeah, he didn't clean, so
We're gonna get a little men's rights here during this episode where it's like our people are being referred to as cars.
This shit is insane. What the fuck is this?
Honestly, the more I got into this book, the more men's right friendly she was. She seems to really like think men are like, I don't know. We'll get into it later.
Okay.
But she's
what are her man friendly methods? Are they that making him feel like he's made the decision?
Well, first you need to understand like what a man is.
Right.
So
don't we all? Yeah.
I want this out of the context of the podcast and like Cole saying it's her at a bus stop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, well, you need to understand what a man is. And then he just points to himself, this guy. Yeah. That's fucking.
But also her methods are based on the pragmatic yet unorthodox idea that one person can change a relationship single-handedly. So she believes that you don't even, your partner doesn't even need to buy in to change the relationship with
That's
your
not a healthy
force
way
of
to do
will.
it.
I think that's really unsafe. Yeah, I
you
think
like-
that's
if you're like,
really.
yeah, we're
Well,
both-
see, no,
we're
you
not
could be a
communicating it.
codependent manipulator.
Yeah, I don't agree. I also don't agree with that at all. I
talk to
I
someone.
think, like, in my experience, having done that, I remember being my last relationship, like long one. I remember actually using the terms like, if I stopped rowing this boat, the whole thing would stop. Like, it was all on me, and what happens in that is
Why would
it
you wanna
might
be
be
that?
you,
That's
like,
shitty, yeah.
That's
but,
what- yeah,
but
that's
also
how I
like,
feel.
or as much as like maybe down the line I could have changed it. Maybe I
Yeah.
could. What it has cost you in doing that is so huge. You just feel like an idiot. You feel like that, like by the fridge finger wagger who's like nagging, and no one's to feel like a nagger. I think by the time you've changed him, you've changed you as well.
Yeah.
Why did you feel
that's-
like you were the only one?
Because I'm quite difficult. Like I do now, I'm quite difficult. But
Yeah.
also,
Like, was
I-
there something
Was
you
it
wanted
something
him
like
to
you
do?
were
Effort.
trying
It's
to
like-
get super
it's like-
serious and he wasn't doing
no,
it? That
kind of like same story, world over. Every coffee house you go to, effort. It's just effort. Like I
Yeah.
used to say, it's like, I don't care if our date is me sitting on a park bench holding a packet of Skittles.
Yeah.
It's something you've organised. It's something you've done. It's being like, I'd like to do this, or I want to put a date in the diary for this, or I want to come to your house to make that. Like,
Yeah.
it's literally, it doesn't have to be like the grandiose statement. And also, when you know things are bad, like every couple goes through a rocky period, or like times when they're not communicating, it's all going badly. And if it's always on you to be like, hey, this is awful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's have a sit down chat. It actually starts to really take its toll
No,
because
it's,
you start.
it's only you're the only one who cares.
You're
really.
like,
Yeah.
what would you? I actually was like, do you know it's
Was
bad?
the breakup like that, or was it just
Oh
you
no,
were
the breakup.
like,
I cheated and fucked up.
You cheated? Or
Yeah, I cheated.
I felt like that in my last relationship.
Yeah.
Because like because I had to, because it was a dominator. I had to pay $300 every time. And I'm like, I'm the only one who cares. You know what I mean? I'm putting.
This is one
I'm
way.
putting the car on the line here, and like you're just doing what? One time she wore yoga pants. I'm like, buddy, I fucking went in my savings. All right.
This is what I was saying to you guys. You didn't believe me when we were talking with Nick the other time, but women cheat a lot.
A lot.
A lot. You guys were saying
Yeah.
men.
Because you've been cheated on. Of course you think that.
No, but
No, women cheat a lot.
yeah.
But women cheat very differently. Women cheat very, very
They
differently.
treat more emotionally.
Emotionally, yeah. So my dad always used to say, he still does because he has no filter either. He's like, darling, the biggest trick God ever played on man was he gave him two brains with only enough blood to go to one of them.
That's pretty good.
And he's men cheat with their penises, women don't. Women, when their head's out of the relationship, they're out of the relationship, and that's you.
Yeah.
If I'm completely in love with someone, I don't even see attractive guys. Like I don't even really notice them. There's no kind of. It's as soon as you start to have a wobble in your relationship, suddenly, like every second guy is your knight on a white horse.
Plus, it's also maybe a little easier because, like, if you're an attractive woman, you can kind of pull the ripcord at any moment and go away. Where it's like, I'm over here as a failing business.
Yeah,
I got like a new client. I can't just leave. I'm like, no, you have to
he
stay.
could be the thing.
You could,
Is that? Did you
no one's
cheat
walked
with,
in the lot in 30
you
years.
cheated with a person that you liked or
Yeah,
whatever?
I cheated on someone who's like we were getting very close, spending an awful lot of time together.
Oh, that is so much more brutal. Than
Yeah,
like,
brutal. No,
Then
this
my
gets
guy
worse.
fucked the
This,
fat chick at
this
the
gets
bar, like,
worse.
that is
This
so-
gets worse. My boyfriend at the time then was coming to visit because I was in a show up in the north of England. We went out for tea and dinner with me, him, and this guy.
That is
Oh.
horrific.
The
That's
three of
horrible.
us.
I'm talking
Oh.
about
Get out. get out of here.
praising Gone Girl and doing. God, it's fucking Lord Voldemort. He's
This,
sitting
and then
across
one
from me
time
right now.
I made my boyfriend cry on the phone because I was about to break up, and so I just was like, sticking the needle in. I made him cry on the phone, and I was getting ready to go out and meet this other guy who I was cheating on him with, and literally he burst into tears on the phone, and I put it on speaker, and I kept on doing my mascara because I didn't want to be late for going to meet the it is when you when you
Fucking hell.
and I honestly I'm not saying this to be like I'm the most evil. I'm saying this because there are so many stories. No, I am. But what I'm saying is when girls, and there's so many girls I know who have a similar kind of, not maybe quite like Lady Macbeth like that, but who, when they're out, you're done. Like nothing in you cares. Like you are heart, soul, mind out of there.
I don't have that in me.
I want to cry.
No.
Is he alive? Is he? Did you?
I have no idea.
man.
I assume they both are.
That would break me. Yeah, we do cheat. We cheat differently.
Yeah, you cheat different. That's the thing, and that's why I think like the Europeans, especially, really, there's a bit of a laissez-faire around men cheating. There's like, especially France, kind of both sides.
Really?
but
Like they just fuck.
they just kind of get it. They're like, men will like. Oh, I love the French. They just say like, oh, c'est compliqué. Like, what is it like? La douleur exquise, which is like the exquisite pain. Like they just kind of know that love and pain go completely hand in hand.
Damn
so
right.
like,
Yeah.
fuck
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It's like live yourself.
Yeah.
So what is this thing like the average French woman? If her boyfriend cheats on her, she's not like automatically going to break up with
No,
him?
God no. She's probably cheating. I mean, she's probably having a
How would you?
side
What if
salad
someone
as well,
cheated
but-
on you? Would you? Automatically?
I think I'd be a lot more understanding of it now, especially because I know that it's not like I know how it happens, and also I do think with men, what I've realised over the last few years, and that kind of blows girls' minds still, and we get it, but we don't really understand it, that you can love the fibre of a girl, like you can love everything about her, every
But
little
not
thing.
sexually.
But
compatible.
or you can and still love having sex with her and still find her so attractive, but you still want to shag that girl over there and like that's unfathomable to us.
Well, I guess
But
it's
you
like the
can.
difference between like actual intimacy
That's
and
like-
just like the physical.
Yeah.
pleasure.
Well, that biological thing of like I want to fuck I want to fuck that, I want to
Yeah.
fuck that, I want to fuck that person, I want to fuck that person. Yeah.
But it doesn't then change how you feel about that your main woman.
I would feel weird about if I was like really close to somebody.
Yeah, it is
because I'm
weird,
like, this is
but
like
it's-
my thing I do with that person.
But also,
This
it's lying. Like my thing is always, if you want to do that, wicked, just don't be in a relationship because you don't have to be in one. Like
Yeah.
you can go around your life doing that. You don't have to be. So I suppose going back to this book, that's why I find it odd that you've chosen to be in a relationship with someone
you
That
don't
you-
that
like
you
to
then
the point where you want
exactly
to
where
change
you're
it.
Yeah.
you're reading a book about changing.
What do you,
like,
do you think it's completely crazy to say like if there's things that because there's things that if you get in a relationship with
Yeah.
someone at the beginning where you're like this is who this person is and
Yeah.
I might not like
But people
certain
also
aspect.
change.
Is it
change-
weird?
to-
They change together.
So what I'm saying is it weird to be like okay maybe getting into a relationship I know that she I don't know just some fucking issue that she has. And you're like, I think this is going to change over the next 5 years. Is it weird to want that kind of shit to change?
I also don't think it's weird to think it could. I don't think nature changes. I don't think your basic nature can change. I think that's who you are. That's how you're wired.
I mean, that's kind of a depressing statement to say. I mean,
Some of it can-
I think like
if
some,
it's
like,
okay, if you get in a relationship with somebody at the beginning, you can already tell this person doesn't communicate enough, right? Like
Yeah.
if we have problems, they just kind of shut down.
Especially
That's
if you're, like,
something
in
you
your
can
early-
change.
That is definitely
That's
something
you
you
can
can
work to change.
because that's
also, if you're,
usually
like
about
young
trust.
people, I don't really think it's like made in granite, and I think if you make like solid effort towards anything,
Yeah.
you can
My
actually-
problem isn't so much trying to change as much as it's I'm gonna do it alone by trying to Pavlov dog my boyfriend
Yeah.
into fucking.
I'm
yeah.
gonna
But I'm
read
trying
a
to
bit.
trick someone into being someone
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
Do you find it in your nature, Kwame, to be financially insolvent all the time? Is that a changeable
little bit of
thing?
my
or
nature.
yeah,
And hopefully a woman will come along and she will
Change
that
your
for me.
books.
Yeah. She will.
On the books, good.
yeah. So she gets into
Wearing
Yeah.
the fucking red beanie, being broke, drinking a PBR, talking about how you're going to
On a-
get pregnant.
on a
You're
crate.
literally, you're the problem. Do you understand?
What about the? What are
You're
you
the
talking
fucking
about?
problem.
if you were outside on that same crate, people would be giving you money. like you
It's
look,
your
I
house,
think I
motherfucker.
passed 5
It's your-
Kwamines on the
No,
way
listen,
over here.
You do not get this. It's your fucking house. You gave me a crate to sit on because you don't have frontage.
Kwame is drinking a PBR, sitting on a crate right now with
Yeah.
the red beanie on.
so yeah, she gets in. She's really big
He's gonna
into.
start selling loose cigarettes halfway through the podcast.
Loose squares. Loose squares.
She's really big into that biology like determines
Yeah.
how men act, and so she has a chat. Her next chapter is like understanding men, and it's titled Testosterone Simplified.
Yeah. Testosterone.
It just
is
says fuck, fuck,
no,
fuck, fuck.
testosterone is the root of like most problems.
Yeah,
And
of all
Yeah.
evil, I'd say.
How
Well-
can you simplify it more than it makes you want to fuck all the time, and that's bad.
but it's also but
No,
it's,
she
it's,
says
no,
it also
it's the
makes you not-
competitiveness and jealousy that all comes
But it
from
all
that.
comes
no,
back
but it's
to
also
you want to
territory.
fuck.
It's territory, isn't it? Testosterone. It's a
And
lot of
well,
that.
she ascribes lots of things to it. Like she says, like the problems in relationships that come from testosterone is one, like he never wants to talk or share his feelings.
I do that too much.
And yeah,
know
she
too much
says
about my ass.
she says the difference between women is women have good conversations about feelings, while men have meaningless chatter about business, sports, or politics.
Achievement. They
That
have a
is
chat about
that's
achievement.
very insulting.
No, but they
That's also-
do.
that's I've grown up such a pussy that I actually don't agree with. You know what I like?
Meaningless chatter. I mean, we're talking about
Yeah,
business.
yeah, we're talking about the Browns, asshole.
It-
Like,
Son of a
She-
bitch.
I have some pretty hot takes on the new
She
quarterback.
puts politics under meaningless chatter.
yeah,
How's that
like
meaningless?
what?
That's also pretty insulting to women too.
Yeah,
to say, like,
yeah.
to say like first of all, women don't talk
We don't
talk
joke
about.
about
They
politics
can't
or
like or
sport.
discuss sports or fucking politics.
yeah, no.
The realm of politics is somehow too complicated for your average woman to
Yeah,
understand.
they just like talking about sadness, but they can't really figure out how fuck Congress
She probably
works.
means meaning. She probably means meaningless in the way of like meaning to them. Like it's something that costs them nothing. Do you know what I mean? It's a conversation that is easy it's of a surface.
I think that's like a generational thing because like my white grandpa, he's like almost a ninja at avoiding any
kind of
no, because he's like Midwestern people. Yeah. They are the most unfeel. I think it's what that is. They shove themselves full of cheese to the point where like they. You think
I thought Midwestern people were known for being more?
No, they're not.
No,
they're fun. I noticed when we moved here, it's like weird. Like most people.
Well, they're super polite, kind of.
Yeah, but polite is
like weird Minnesota.
That's weakness. That's because you're not.
But it's also the same like in where I'm from, Seattle. They have this thing called like the Seattle freeze, and where it's like you move there, and at first glance, like everyone's like really nice to you. Like they'll say, hey, they'll be super polite, but they'll never like invite you into their group, or they'll never like.
London's like that.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah.
The South isn't like that at all. Right?
No, the South
they're polite, but they're also hospitable.
Well, they're also very boisterous and kind of let them know.
Yeah, we let them know.
Kind of. Yeah, you don't hide shit. Yeah, so.
But she says men don't talk much because of their.
No, my grandpa talk about sports like to the fucking end.
Yeah.
Like whatever event, something horrible. Like my dad is schizophrenia. One time he flipped out, threw a bucket of popcorn in a movie theater. We didn't acknowledge it later, eating pork chops. Like, it rains one day, and then it's sunny the next. It's like, what's going on? And that's just the level of, like, weird. They're just like a ninja. Like, just...
That's admirable. That's like a fucking skill.
You know, like, Nero in the Matrix, like, when bullets are coming out? Like, Midwesterners, like, just stop feelings in mid-flight before it comes towards them.
Yeah, but she says it's all because of our brains that we don't talk about feelings.
This is a little eugenicsy.
No,
it's the ridges in their skull that makes them not want to hang out with your friends.
The Negro head is actually about 3 centimeters too wide, meaning that they can't discuss politics.
She says the left hemisphere is for factual, rational thought. The right is for abstract thinking and emotion. And she says males only use the left, while women use both.
Is that a scientific thing, or is that?
I don't.
Also, they don't only use that. So she means they mostly use.
Mostly use them, and that's because the fibers that she says the fibers that connect the brain are like 50% larger in women than they are in men. And she cites the book "Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus."
Yeah, that's a huge.
She
cites that as like scientific fact.
That's the fact.
No, but the science of right brain versus left brain is a thing because companies
that's been
use
debunked.
It. Yeah. What? But like when companies do the personality tests, they still use the terminology of right and left.
That's it's like urban, like it's within the consciousness, but that's been like completely debunked that there's portions of your left or right brain.
So it's more of like a hypothetical terminology,
it's like a
compartment.
Pop psychology kind of thing.
It's like kind of trying to figure out what kind of person you are. You're more like artsy, or you're more kind of factual,
pragmatic.
But you're not either or. You're really just like a mix of a bunch of different kind of shit.
But isn't it a thing where the link between women do flip between the two? That's a multitasking thing. How you can be.
Well, I think what I heard that it was a good articulation of this is that men, because of testosterone, are better risk takers. Like they think more taking large risks
because they don't see consequences.
Because like their evolutionary thought process is like come in something, take the risk, go out there. Whereas if you're pregnant, you got to think long term. Your life. So you got a long term planner versus so that person can take more risks. So they might start a company, they might do that, but you got someone who's like. They can think more logically and plan this out.
Well, I read this brilliant book called Animals by Sarah Pascoe, who's a British comedian, and she's gone at it from a completely anthropological kind of science place. Like she's obviously very funny as well, but she's spent loads of time with scientists and, like I said, anthropologists. And same thing, she says like think of asexual encounter. Like Joe Rogan, and did his podcast touched on this, which is ideal scenario for a man is to orgasm, have sex with a woman, and then peace out and continue on his merry way. Like the dream. Women, that same encounter, which can be as like long or short as you like it, could potentially end up in 18 years of child rearing.
So what are the tips? What can they do to save
understand
apes like us?
The problems that testosterone causes. So problem number one is women don't talk. Our men don't talk.
Men don't talk.
And number two is that relationships are last on a man's priorities.
Yeah.
And
not necessarily. What are you talking about?
It depends on the point in life.
It depends. Yeah, it depends on who you are and what you're doing.
I mean, come on. We talked previously about how she thinks brains and stuff.
Yeah, she's being obviously a little generalizing. She opened with the only man who can't change is a dead man. So she obviously is a little extreme, and she likes to. So yeah, she's gonna say stuff like it's the last person, and we're like, well, I don't know if I agree with that. It's like, yeah, she thinks we're all fucking apes that need to be tricked into being a nice person. That's her fucking book.
Yeah, she says they're either workaholics or sportsaholics, are always playing video games.
I know so many men who don't put any effort into anything.
Workaholics, sportsaholics are in Kinnan's case an alcoholic.
Yeah. I put my passion where it is. Got to clock in every day to this. You do what you love. You never work a day in your life.
She says women feel satisfaction by relating to people. Men feel satisfaction by achieving.
I'd agree with that.
And we are so goal-oriented that we focus so hard on one thing and we can't do anything else. And she gives
there's some truth to that.
She gives an example. There may be some truth, but she gives an example of her husband, Jim. And she says she has a conversation with Jim, and it goes really well until the dog walks into the room, and Jim stops dead in his tracks because his concentration is broken.
By a dog.
He can't continue the conversation.
Like he is a 6-year-old. A puppy comes in the ready. He suddenly cannot focus on human interaction.
I think she's got bad husbands.
Yeah.
I think.
She's trying to talk about like it's all men. It's like,
I think Michelle has a literary empire based on her husband's an idiot.
Yeah, of course. He only started doing that after he had the stroke 12 years ago.
Down, get rid of Jim.
Imagine just having a conversation with this man. And the dog walks in, and he's like, dog. Dog.
It is like the dog from Up, isn't it?
Imagine being married to a woman for like 23 years. You're like, oh, what are you doing? It's like, oh, just writing a book about how you're a useless retard. You're literally
just writing a book about. I'm just chronicling my disappointment over the last 20 years because of you. Yeah. I'm going to dedicate it to you though because you're trying.
The person that you raised children with and you paid off a house with and you've loved for all these years, but apparently he cannot resist.
I'll buy you a dog. I'll buy you a dog if you let me write this book.
A 57-year-old man cannot resist a golden retriever.
We're not looking great. We're not looking. Apparently,
the fuck is this? She didn't even say. I thought it was gonna be like she's like, oh, they concentrate on one thing. It was like, oh, like the careers or like sports. Like, no, a dog.
Yeah. Shiny objects is what really distracts them from the relationship.
Yeah, whenever we're talking, he finds a penny on the ground. He suddenly cannot commit to our relationship.
Yeah, she says she used to think it was ADD. But it really is.
Maybe she's boring. That's what it could. Like, this is what's so awful. Is
she's probably
she could be really boring, and it's poor Jim.
Yeah. Why is all the onus on the man to fucking?
Hey, here's an idea. Be fucking interesting. Maybe
tell a better fucking story. Yeah. He's looking at the dog for help.
Also, if you have like really interesting conversations while you're both cleaning the dishes, he'll clean the fucking dishes.
You know what Fluffy never does? Bitch at me about what time I was out last night.
It's like the Bernard rescue dog. That's what he was hoping he would do for the relationship.
That they thought it was ADD, but it really is just that he's a guy, and guys can only do one thing at a time. Yeah.
Because we managed to be both funny and exciteful on this podcast, so I think already multitasking.
But you also did just use the word exciteful. So
I've been drinking since. I'm working through a little bit of a substance abuse problem. So.
To be honest, when the cat came in the room earlier, I was like, "Hey, my cat, let's stop the podcast."
Oh my god! Yeah, you're right. We did do. Yeah.
Hey, it's a cat.
Jesus. Yeah. No, she's right about everything.
No, but you know the interesting thing about testosterone is because it's its biggest problem is when it's mixed is the partnering of oxytocin that women have. So you know what oxytocin is? The hormone that we release when we orgasm. We release.
So that's what happens when you fall in love, and it's also when it released in your brain when you take MDMA.
Oxytocin is the bonding, is like an attachment hormone. Men release a little bit of it when they orgasm. Women release something like 2 or 3 times the amount of it. So whereas like a man sitting there after sex being like, oh, I like this, I'd happily do it again. She's like, oh, my husband. And then she releases like even more of it, like a lot more of it when she gives birth, because you have to immediately attach this thing that's just put you through like a whole world of pain.
Yeah.
So the thing you've got is like, while sex is happening, all this testosterone is passing around a man's body, and at the same time, a woman is about to release an inordinate amount of oxytocin compared to what she's used to releasing. So you've got a guy sitting there being like, I am the man, I'm a lion, I can do anything, and she's like, my soulmate.
Yeah.
And that's the issue. That's where it all gets horribly wrong.
I don't know the science behind it enough to challenge you, but your voice makes me go like, yeah, it's probably true. I'm sure there's.
No, she could say anything, and we're like, well, the British overlords are right on this one. Yeah. All right, so what are the tips, Cole?
No, it's still not.
We're still on the philosophy about how men are. How fucking long is this manifesto?
We're still on what is a man.
We're still on sentient gods. For fuck's sake! I've been hearing about how we're useless animals. For
another problem caused by testosterone is why can't men think of anything but sex?
Well, that's a goddamn truth right there. That's a medical issue.
Well, it all just revolves around sex, man. I mean, I'm pretty sure like testosterone just makes it so like everything. It just influences all of your actions to be about sex. I want to be funny because I want to have sex. Yeah. I want to have a good job and make money so that women will like me so I can have sex. It's just,
no. She says guys walk down the street with one mission: boobies and tits.
Oh. That's the same mission. That's the mission.
You imagine?
That is a published hardcover book that's like 300 pages that said boobies and tits.
I bet she's really flat-chested.
You imagine?
Yeah, she says everything
Our
reminds him of...
destination today, boobies and tits, boys. So we're heading to.
Yeah, she says everything reminds him of...
You jump in the back of an Uber ride, where you go? Wherever boobs and tits are, buddy. Take me.
She says everything reminds him of sex, making dinner, talking about your day, breathing, and they say men can do it in any mood, but for women...
That's true, yeah.
Women, it's not the same. And she gives an antidote of her husband, Jim, and she was telling Jim...
Do you know about this? Fucking Jim's crying reading this book.
With the dog.
She was telling Jim there's only 2 times when I'm not into sex, and before she could finish her sentence, Jim says, yeah, when I want to and every other time.
Jim's hilarious.
Yeah,
Jim's fucking awesome.
Jim is hilarious.
Jim is a great guy. Where's Jim on this fucking
Where is
pod?
Jim's Netflix special?
Yeah,
that's what I would
Jim's fucking cool.
Fucking amazing.
Got this useless cunt writing a book about how Jim sucks. For fuck's sake. How many fucking witty jokes? I've heard 2 things about Jim. He likes dogs and he's funny. That's all I know about this motherfucker. He's great.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
And she says men are...
Does she ever say when she thinks her 2 times are?
That's what I'm using.
No, she never finishes.
She finishes it. So she has 2 times. She's keeping it. Well, that's the problem, isn't it? She knows the 2 times, but she isn't telling you. Tell us.
Also, just 2 times? That's like... kind of low. Like,
yeah, that's not even a lot of the whole range of human experience. There's only 2 modes you're not into fucking.
It is like day before your period when you're full. There has to be those 2 times.
And she said, men are very simple. Make sure they don't go hungry and have sex often. And then they are much nicer to be around.
That's a little true to be
They
honest.
do more housework. They communicate better. And they're even better fathers when sexually satisfied.
I'd agree with that.
Actually is kind of true.
You think we're better fathers when we're...
But the first 2...
Well, yeah, because you might be a little mad at your son. You know
the first 2 apply to us. But if I was always fed and if you were having sex regularly, I think we'd both be pretty pleasant.
Wouldn't it be great if I had sex all the time and like my voice actually got like a lot lower?
But I do think
actually does done.
I think everyone is better when they're
I agree.
when they're fucking out. But I think girls are, but not. But men, it's an obvious. It's like a much more obvious.
I think it's
really?
For me, it's the
It's like a little swag in
your
your
the
step.
fact that somebody else would let me like do that
do
is
that.
like holy shit.
It
is
like,
kind of
okay.
You can see it in your friends when you have guy friends and they're like if they haven't fucked in like 6 months and they just suddenly get into a relationship and it's like you're like the little kid in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory where you got a golden ticket.
Should you like indulge that in your partner if he's just like like moping around because...
I do think sex is an important thing.
I think sex is massively important.
It can't help.
And I'm always amazed that I've got a couple of girlfriends back home who they're like, oh god, he's always pestering. Oh my god, he always wants. And you're like, I think I'm a sex pest.
I would say a healthy relationship is probably fucking like 4 or 5 times a week, and that's like kind of how often do you and your girlfriend have sex?
Probably around 4 times a week.
Yeah, if it's a thing where it's like if you're happy, if there's no like major problems and you're happy and you live together, you should be fucking like almost like every, you know what I mean, like 4 or 5 times.
Sometimes some people just like aren't in the mood.
Sometimes if you're not in the mood, but if it's a thing where it's like we're happy, we just had dinner, we're hanging out.
Yeah, it's like let's fuck.
It's
also why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, why aren't we? It's the most fun thing we can do. We can watch Netflix or we can go have sex.
But also, I think a lot of time women will they acknowledge that it is a big deal to the guy they're with, even if they're not in the mood to begin with. Like, you know, give it a bit. But I don't think women for the most part would be happier going to bed without it and they'd be fine. Whereas I think we do acknowledge that there needs to be a bit of, next door. Yeah.
Yeah, for men it's like, well, I'm not going to go to sleep.
sleep.
I'm going to the bathroom to jerk off. I remember one time
I
a girlfriend
know.
didn't want to have sex. I was like, I'm going to have to go jerk off in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Do you understand what
Yeah,
you're doing to me?
thanks.
She kind of excuses men at least a little bit, because like you can't say, "Oh, I would have been a better father, but my wife wasn't having sex with me too much, so that's why he turned out like that."
I would call my dad, and he's like, "Why didn't you stick around?" You're like, "Your mom doesn't put out."
That is almost a little valid though, when it's like, Dad, why did you beat me from 10 to 15? It's like, well, in those 5 years, I was not fucking.
I was
ever.
just full of cum.
I had to get this out somehow.
Yeah.
I think mothers are very attuned to when things are going badly in the relationship, putting on a good front for their kids. I think fathers are terrible at that.
Really?
So absolutely.
I would say
that.
so.
That's probably pretty true.
You know, like I'd always know when they were having a bad patch because of my dad, not my mum. She can style it out like a trooper.
Yeah.
But she cannot.
Well, your dad will just straight up tell you. I mean, I got a conversation with my dad with like my stepmom.
Oh, my dad. Well, my dad didn't want to be a dad. He just had like another bro essentially to talk to. He told me he's like, yeah, your mom's not the one. He's like, I don't really know what to do with my life. I'm like, I'm 11. I really know.
Can we not?
I don't know what feedback I'm gonna have here. Playing the sandbox, maybe. That's
Your dad will sit you down when you're like 12. He's like, I think you're probably gonna get divorced. I'm like, all right, man. Whatever you gotta do.
All right, so we covered part 1, which is ready.
Men
And so
are
now you
useless apes.
understand the whole complexities
Okay.
of the male. You know, we don't talk, we don't do anything unless we've been sexed up a little bit. And now it's aim. And she's getting you ready for you. So you have to know exactly what you want to change in your guy. You have to be super specific about your goals, because guys need to have everything laid out in front of them in excruciating detail, because we are slow learners. Yeah.
That is insulting.
They're so dumb. You gotta simplify.
That is insulting.
Because we're so stupid.
What the fuck is
We're
that?
just like sex. No, feelings. Sex? Sex. Like, that's just two things.
It's not even like a left-right brand. It's just like, no, they're dumber.
they're just below us. All right.
She probably is basing this all off of Jim, though,
I was
too.
gonna say,
Yeah,
like,
maybe Jim, who apparently is
so
a funny
unfair.
Jim, this poor man who apparently got in a car accident 15 years ago and hasn't been the same since. So you were just brutally ripping apart.
I just find him out because some of the most like insightful, interesting, like emotionally astute conversations I've had have been with my guy friends. It's just them being given the forum to actually talk like that. I think they do. When boys all got to get together, there is the thing of like, oh, and obviously we're not going to talk about that, but I love it when they talk to us, like the girls, and they are so in tune with it and so aware and so able
well, she
to
probably doesn't
communicate
want
it.
to. Jim probably doesn't want to talk to her when she's like,
Writing
Jim,
a book. Yeah.
let's talk, Jim.
Exactly.
Do you understand what I'm saying to you, Jim?
Yeah, it's a little. Yeah,
It's like, no, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I want you to stop. I want you to fucking
Yeah, so you got to focus on what you want, not what you don't want. And you got to make your ask action-oriented. So instead of asking like a man to be a better listener, you got to ask him first to turn off the TV, second to make eye contact, third to ask about your day, and then fourth, ask them to make comments based on what you're saying.
Interesting.
Oh my
What the
God,
fuck is
Jim.
But it's
that?
like literally you're
Be a
gaming
fucking-
a program for what it's like to be a real
No,
fucking person.
Jim's fucking
it's like
secretary,
that person
isn't
just
he?
doesn't fucking love you.
Yeah, I'm
you
sorry,
know?
I'm
If you
watching
come home and
TV.
someone's watching TV. It's just because the TV's more. I'm sorry, 4,000 channels is better than fucking your two shitty friends at work.
No. Let me turn off Breaking Bad so I can hear
Yeah,
what
the best
happened to
series
you
ever
at the
told.
nail salon.
Let me get it. Yeah, Monica's the bitch. I get it. It's the same fucking thing every day.
Jim's having a conversation like, Jim, make eye contact.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was like, make icon now, comment on what I've said. It's like a pop quiz.
Can you imagine?
But if
literally
you're
just-
interesting, people just do. If you're like a fun person,
Yeah,
you're like, oh, I
people
did this and it was
listen.
crazy.
Yeah,
I'm like,
like-
oh wow, what the
Yeah,
fuck
if I'm
happened
dating
next?
someone, they come up, I'm like, oh, hey. I'm not just sitting there and it's like, oh, I forgot eye contact. Stupid. Like,
I do think what she is tapping into is something different, which is like none of us have ever been married for like 1,000,000 years. So there is a point at which I do think men settle into something and forget, and men take things for granted a lot quicker than women do, and I do absolutely stand
But do you
by
think
that.
that's? I think that's true. But do you think
Yeah.
it's 100% his fault?
No,
necessarily?
I
If-
don't.
If there's
I
no
don't-
more,
and
if
I
there's
don't-
no more spark in your relationship, and let's say it's not a thing where it's like one
Yeah.
person's putting all the effort in, because then obviously it's
Yeah.
his fault. But if there's no more spark in your relationship, and it's like a 50-50, that's not his fault necessarily. You guys both have to work.
I
to
don't think
make
a
it an
spark
interesting thing.
is as mercurial and magical and mythical as everyone thinks it is. I think a spark takes work, and I think if one
Yeah.
person is watching the TV when someone comes in and not getting up,
Yeah.
how are you? That gradually grinds a woman down. That very gradually.
Do you think these asks would eventually ignite a spark?
Would you
No,
do
I
something
think
like this?
I,
If you were in a relationship
I wouldn't.
like
I wouldn't
this,
turn around and be like, "Please make eye contact now. Comment on everything I've said." Like, I wouldn't say that. But like, one thing I would say is like, "Hey, like I remember when I first got with one of my boyfriends. I woke up in the middle of the night. We just started getting together. Like, it was all very new and very exciting. I woke up in the middle of the night, And he wasn't there. He wasn't in the bed. And I was like, oh, this sort. I was at his apartment, his flat. And I went next door and he'd snuck out of bed and gone to play video games with his best friend next door in the living room. I went absolutely ballistic because I was like, it's the beginning. Like, you've left a sleeping woman who you've just shagged in bed to go play video games with your best friend.
But that's also
that's weird.
That's an objectively poor.
No, but
move.
it's not.
Like,
But it's not an
Every man would
objectively.
have been like, how did you not see that?
No, but it's not an objectively.
Also, I want to do that. But
exactly. He's like,
I know that's wrong.
But you understand? You're like in his head,
that's right, but also wrong.
I mean, it's
like,
pretty good
she's
night.
asleep.
Have some sex with a woman, go play video games, go back to bed with a woman.
But it makes sense because he's like, she's asleep. I'm not.
To be fair,
I'd like
if
to
he
play
pulled it
video
off, he
games.
would have been a genius.
Yeah, exactly.
If he pulled it off,
Yeah.
I would have thought. If he would have came back, cuddled, and you're like, you're the best, and he's like, dude, I fucking what?
But then
all he did was get the strategy.
He got found.
I mean, I don't want to be weird.
He should have
drugged you.
Yeah.
like a little bit of Xanny just to
He
keep
should have just combined the two and started playing video games while you were having sex.
Would you prefer if he was still kind of mildly cuttering you and then just his friends sitting at the edge of the bed and they're screaming about Call of Duty?
Yes. No, but that was a
headset,
conversation
quiet
afterwards. I was like, that makes me feel like a prostitute. And funnily enough, and so if you could not do that, and he never did it again. And that's the thing where a lot of women, what I think she's tapping into is a lot of women do want the mind reader. And I think you have to, the whole eye contact, please comment on what I'm saying, please into my day. What she's saying is, articulate women. Don't just sit there in a huff getting cross and being passive aggressive about it. Be like, that's not cool. That makes me feel like shit. If you want to keep going with this, fine, do it.
But that's open communication. That's healthy.
That's communication.
That's open communication versus this shit, which is like manipulating him to be.
She's against kind of open communication.
I know, which is what I find mad because
that's crazy.
So that's giving them no chance. That's like asking for them to fail a little bit.
Because so much of it in a relationship is just like you just got to talk. It's like if something upsets you, don't bottle up. Just say
I don't know. Especially for me, I always knew. Like I think it's the worst when like you got that silent angry drive.
Yeah.
And then your girlfriend isn't saying, I don't know, I'm just good. And you're just like, what's wrong?
So she says the more rules the better because men because men like rules. It's why they like sports.
That's just such a third grade fucking statement. That's such a goddamn.
I hate Michelle, and I'll tell you why I hate Michelle is because the kind
Michelle
of person
Obama?
she must be to stand by this.
Yeah.
I can't even
Is
imagine.
her name Michelle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking like going on a
Because
weird
we
Michelle.
listen to details, us women.
Michelle Obama.
Yeah,
When people introduce
already
themselves.
part of the
I like a
book.
weird Michelle
Hey,
Obama.
Michelle, I've just been thinking of fucking the whole time. I can't even.
Michelle,
I'm thinking about Michelle's boobies and tits, honestly. So.
And the dog.
Yeah.
But I think what it costs you, like I've been in a person who you're so close to being like, look, do this or this will happen, and it makes you feel like such a wanker. You just feel like this like horrible, awful, naggy woman, and the idea.
Wanker is a bad person.
Yeah, like a wanker.
Can you use
Sorry.
niggle again? I liked it when you use niggle. Can you use
No,
niggle
I'm
again?
not. 'Cause he's gonna get me thrown out of Chicago, obviously.
All right, I'm gonna give you a 2 niggle limit for the rest of the show.
But yeah, no, there's no way it could be fun where you're like, hey, you know what men like? Tyranny. That's what I think. If we have a totalitarian regime where you come in with an AK-47 and you make eye contact, comment, or you will be thrown in the gulag emotionally.
No, and also I think the usage of the word rules is wrong. It's just expectation, isn't it? It's saying
that is
if
what
you
say
do
you have
this,
rules in your
just say
relationship.
rules.
Like,
Like, if you do
She's
this,
using
this will
rules
happen.
because she thinks men like rule. Like we
I
like
think
having
exactly
a
opposite.
detailed.
Rules? No, I don't want.
I
I want a
exact
fucking
opposite.
relationship.
Yeah.
I want a relationship with a woman. I don't want rule. You're not my principal. I want rules.
I also think there's
I
still
don't-
something left over from the sort of caveman how we're wired. I hate to use that because it's a bit basic, but when everything outside your house is unknown and it's not up to you and it's kind of out of your control, autonomy doesn't exist. In your house it does, and I think there is still a huge part of a lot of men whereby in their home, as much as it's 2018, as much as everyone's being a lot more liberal and tolerant and cool about stuff, they do want their home to be their castle a little bit. There is an expectation that they come home and they won't be afflicted by all the unknowns of the outside world. So the idea that they walk into a home and a woman's sat there going, and this is a new rule, 79B clause, and it's like, what are you doing? Like,
That'd be great. We have a new
That might be
amendment
true.
today, Jim.
like life's really hard for everyone.
Congress of
Like,
One has voted and passed. Both parties and both houses have
are you
decided that you will
doing?
no longer be having beer on Fridays with your friends at the bar.
Yeah, it's
Court
not.
finds you.
But this is against the Constitution. I've amended the Constitution. Supreme Court of one and the President of one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a relationship's supposed to be like, in my head, kind of an oasis from life.
Yeah,
like,
I
this is a
totally
fun
agree.
person
That
that I
probably-
love, and we hang out and kind of like this is like almost the antidote.
We're each other's safe space.
Yeah.
We're each other's safe space.
That's probably the reason why.
I don't want to.
So
and then when it becomes like, oh, you're actually a source of more.
That's why there's so many
exactly.
there's so many like man cave kind of shit like that because it's like, oh, I need like a place
little
to
oasis.
go. I like my dad. I mean, I don't know if he's gonna listen to this, but my dad is like, yeah, he's talking about he's not.
Dad never listens to you when you're talking. He's gonna listen to the fucking podcast.
He's not very happy in like his current relationship, and so he's told me, he's like, yeah, my favorite time is when I'm not in this house.
Oh yeah,
when I'm outside of this house and I'm going.
I remember when I was in a terrible relationship, I would talk to the cashier at stores more, and I just remember having I was like, oh, this is what connection feels like. I was like, this is not a person who just fucking hates me. Yeah. This is great.
Yeah. So the next chapter is chapter 6, basic training: sit, stay, come.
Oh no!
sit, stay, come.
Yeah.
Isn't CUM?
No, it's like a dog.
I thought it was sit, stay, come.
Yeah, that is. She's right about that.
Oh, I mean, she was
all the time.
Nail about that. No,
she said, men are like puppies, and they learn faster with positive rewards for good behavior. So, dog training principle number 1, and she uses dog training and man training interchangeably.
Good.
Because
that's healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're the same.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, just fucking filthy animals that you need to train into being civilized.
And so dog training principle number 1 is emphasize the positives. So carrots are more effective for training dogs than punishing bad behavior. And it's the same with men. We shouldn't have to fawn over men for doing their jobs, but it's the most effective way to train them. So, if you see a man like doing his duties and actually being a parent to a child, you're supposed to watch a game with him or initiate sex with him to reward him for.
I feel like unfortunately that probably works.
Do you know what it really does?
I want to disagree with that, but I'm like, if like my girlfriend was like, that was a really good job you did up there. You want to have sex now? I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. Like I would do that. That would be the thing I do every day.
That's the thing. It really does. It really
that
does
would actually work. Like the problem is like I just don't want her to be fucking right, but like just her saying like if she complimented something I did and then basically was like, because essentially all I want a woman to do would be like, you're a good little boy, and then fuck.
Yeah. But I just like being a father is kind of like an essential thing. I can't imagine.
Yeah, you can't be a thing you have to be like, oh fuck, I didn't blow him this week. Now it's not.
I can't imagine like
soccer games.
Like someone asking you, so like how'd your kid turn out so well? And you're like, well, she every time I tucked him into bed, she gave me a blowjob.
Yeah. To be fair though, those kids would be tucked the fucking bed though. Like if you were having sex with your husband every time, that kid would be so emotionally.
I don't think it's as like linear. I think it's an association thing.
Yeah.
I think if the home, it goes back to the home thing. If the home is a source of like happiness and validation and comfort and pleasing people, whoever that may be, whether it's your wife or the other way around or the children, then all of that association gets tied into the same thing. It's not like, I've been a good dad today. Now I get a shag. Like, it's like my home where things are nice and happy and colourful and warm. I think it's like a whole feeling about the space.
And then she says, so the rewards must be rewarding. And so for her, that means Jim is always well-fed and sexually satisfied.
That is like some authoritarian Saudi Arabian shit.
But it's also like, I was reading this and I was like, are you really changing him, or did Jim change you to give him sex and food every time?
It sounds like Jim is winning whore.
That's like some real 50s.
Like, okay, so you have to blow him and make him food just so he looks at you. Like that's what's going down. Is like, the way you manipulate him is completely bend over backwards for him to treat you like a human. I'm like, what? This is sad.
Good one, Michelle. You told him.
I thought she was like the manipulator. Like this is a really sad fucking book.
Oh,
you're
Michelle,
walking into your home. And you're like, oh yeah, I want him to hear about my day. I guess we're doing anal tonight. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, you just clean the dish. He's like, Michelle, get over here. I'm cleaning.
I did the whole set. You know what that means? Get the mask. Putting that fucking belt on tonight. I also did laundry.
Yeah.
Your wife.
Yeah, she says timely consequences work best. So you have to reward him as soon as you notice him, like cleaning the kitchen or something.
Oh my God!
Insane.
So she's
actually insane.
On her knees, following him around.
Yeah, literally
just trying to keep up with him, like doing the cupboards.
You got an air freshener for the car. She like dorks out of bed, just starts
He's like brushing his teeth and she shoots into under the sink. Like,
it's like that 50-meter dash where she like slides in and gives him a blowjob as soon as he.
Oh my god, Michelle!
He's tucking the kid in underneath the bed. She's just giving him.
I just paid rent.
No, she's out of a tree. I don't like this at all.
This is pretty sad.
Because also, this doesn't sound like a two-way street.
This
like,
is pretty bad.
You shouldn't do anything you don't want to do.
I thought it was
going
to go in like a weird, like radical feminist kind of way.
Yeah, I thought it was like, here's how you trick
it. It went from like a super.
This is more like red pill shit.
No, this is the real like Beecher Stowe stuff. Harry and Catherine Beecher Stowe, like at the beginning of the century, it was all like very much like women in the home, but wrote a lot of books kind of on like how to be a good woman. I forget it was something like
actually my grandma brought a book that's like how to be the perfect wife. And it was like have breakfast like
it's that stuff.
It's essentially be a slave.
But their whole thing was if you are doing your role, if you are fulfilling your role as a wife, you will have all the influence you can possibly need in society because you are influencing men and raising sons. And that was their whole logic.
I actually kind of believe that that women are kind of like shadowly in charge of society.
Yeah, we are. But that was their whole thing. And I don't particularly agree with it, but it sounds a lot like this, which is, hey, ladies, if you just like bend over and take it and then a really nice swim and feed him, you can do whatever you want.
It is like she wrapped up like really old advice, but in this kind of like feminist, like, oh yeah, you're changing men are dumb, you're just changing them.
But then it goes to like so blow him. He's dumb.
Yeah, exactly.
He's dumb.
Like, she's talking about like getting him to do the dishes and getting him to be a good father. Like, what about her career? Like,
what did
she
you?
like?
What are you doing?
What did she do? Like, Michelle, before you started reading books, ripping Jim to shreds, like, what did you do?
Yeah, exactly.
What's your?
Yeah, I'm wondering when she was typing this up on her laptop and giving Jim a hand job.
Like, what was your degree, Michelle? I don't know. I'm not sure about this.
Why does he need to do the dishes if you're sitting at home all fucking day doing nothing? Exactly.
Hey, Michelle, nice to have something to do, isn't it?
Yeah, for Christ's sake, all you do is blow me whenever I do what you were supposed to do.
No.
Yeah. She says you gotta keep it simple. Dog training uses one-word commands like sit, stay, come, fetch. So making requests of dogs, like men, the simpler the better.
Oh my god!
Wait, so like give some examples. What are you saying?
So like if you want to
feel more referred to us as dogs about 4 or 5 times. I've kept it in my head. It's like you've used dogs as a metaphor a couple of times.
Yeah.
Not Greg.
Maybe Jim likes being called a dog
because he loves the dog so much.
Well, Jim and his dog are kind of like.
I'm sure Jim
probably
isn't the dog.
Probably have more intimacy than fucking Michelle and Jim.
That's the real relationship. You got watch what Jim does with the dog. He feeds her. He takes care of her.
I never want to fuck the dog. I love the shit out of my dog. I'll do anything for my dog. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So kind of like before, she says instead of saying like you want to feel more connected to your husband, say things like I need you to kiss me in the morning when you wake up. So
that
just
is not
like,
a one-word command.
No.
But.
Also, I'm not going to kiss your gross morning breath every fucking morning when I wake up. What the fuck is that?
Also, like, how do you say that? Is it like he just sitting in his room and she just like walks in the hallway? Is like, Jim, I'm going to need you to kiss me in the morning.
That is kind of a ridiculous request.
He doesn't even look at her. He's just like, okay. And like, fucking walks. It's like weird. That's like so weird.
That's a weird. Is that not a weird fucking request? Kiss me every single morning when I wake. It got bad, but also it's like I have to. I'd
also like to be kissed every morning.
Every day I gotta remember.
I would kind of feel nice if the alarm goes off instead of being like, oh fuck, another one. Yeah, like somebody was like,
you don't mind?
Hey, you're good.
Cool, but we don't live in a 50s sitcom, so it doesn't work.
But I want to.
No, but my
everybody wants that.
My request in my last relationship was I'd really like to wake up for you not to be scrolling through your phone. Like, I hated. I hated.
I think it's gross when people do that in general.
I hate it when I woke up and his first thing he'd do is lean over and get the phone. If he thought I was still asleep, he'd roll over and get his phone, and so I'd wake up to him scrolling through it, and I was like, I absolutely hate this.
Did he stop doing that?
Why do you hate that?
No,
because it's once upon a time.
You want him to like wake you up if he wakes up?
Well, yeah. Well, no, not even like once upon a time. People used to just wake up next to each other and like be there next to each other and be in the room in the same bed next to each other, waking up together. And now there's options to be in the same room and be in the same bed, but be in a completely different like time zone if you wanted to. And I was like, it just. I hate it.
I hate it in general. Anyone who wakes up and the first thing you do is
check their phone.
Go into the vortex of evil.
Yeah, why?
And it's like that's like I might check to be like, oh, did I get any text messages, any phone calls? No.
No.
And then that's it. That's all I need to do. I don't need to fucking start my day with, everyone's horrible opinion.
But also, that's the thing. Like, if you think about waking up, this might be just like me being really like the little romantic girl in me.
No, you want to wake up and like you cuddle each other. You wake up and you hold on to each other forever, and she holds on to you and never lets go.
But also, and it might just be me, but I don't think it is. When you wake up, if you're next to your boyfriend or whatever, you are basically this like naked, vulnerable, sleeping person, and they'd prefer their phone. Like, I think the most beautiful thing in the world is waking up next to someone who's like naked, who you just had sex the night before, and you're all like,
I mean, it's
and someone's
weak
picked
as you
their
can be.
phone.
It's like I'm naked and you accept.
So I think the whole like, can you kiss me in the morning is a bit of like a strand of that, which is, could you maybe just be here and present and aware of me lying here next to you in the morning, rather than like goodbye breakfast.
There also is the point to be made of, if you're blowing me at once a day and being like, no, okay, so can you wake up and kiss me? Like, yeah, I'll do it.
This would work.
In between spit takes, if you're like,
the thing is like all what she's saying works. Like
it does work, but it's shitty.
It's like kind of like how Hitler turned their economy into the best one in Europe. Where it's like he's an evil man, but like those factories got fucking built. Like she's horrible, but Jim probably does the fuck out of the dishes.
Yeah,
it's like. Yeah.
So we agree that this is true. Then some of this shit is. I hate.
It makes me uncomfortable. It makes me.
But she is kind of saying the truth
because she's basically like, you guys are dogs that only think about sex. And I was just like, well,
but
it's a nuanced issue, you know. And then she's
bullshit. But if a girl was like,
hey, just reward them with sex, and they'll do everything for you.
4 times a day she was gonna be blowjobs. I'm like, doing this. I'm like, I'll do every fucking day. I'll do it. Don't want be dishes. I'll do every fucking day. You will never.
You can just eat off me.
You can eat out of. I serve dinner in the sink. You can eat anything.
Yeah, Jim's eye contact must be the amazing.
Just right in
her skull.
This motherfucker, he's got the chair right in front of the door. As soon as he opens, just staring at her. How was your day?
He hears her driving home a mile away, and he's just out the window. Just
he's like Matilda. He can do tricks with his eyes.
The second day I got 6 blowjobs, I strangled the dog. I ended that shit immediately.
Can't distract me from what I have going on.
She tests Jim. She has a dog come in the room, like 2 dogs, 3 dogs. Jim is just like, no, you gotta
shoots him in the face and unzips his pants. All right, I'm ready.
What dog?
She's got like a field of puppies, and he's just sitting there like, don't look. She's gonna do that thing with her tongue. Just please.
Trap. It's a trap. You know.
He finally falls. It's like, God, is that a Labrador? Fuck.
The only thing that trumps boobies and titties, puppies.
Yeah, so now we're on to the fire portion of the book. In the fire portion, she gives you strategies on because talking doesn't work because men are action oriented.
Right.
So she gives you some strategies. Like one of her strategies is do the unexpected. So if what you've been doing isn't working, talking to them, you got to do something different, unexpected. And so, like, one woman was tired of being insulted by her husband in the morning, and she would call him on the...
Sorry.
That's such a reasonable fuck.
Sorry.
One woman was tired of this pesky problem. Her husband wakes up like, is that how you sleep, you fat whore?
So
God.
Yeah, she was tired of being insulted, so instead she rolled over and gave him a blowjob every morning.
Yeah, just for her to stop the barrage of insults.
Oh, you're right. She's winning. She's winning again.
Yeah. She started just waking up being like, maybe a snore because you're fat. And it just goes right back. You're like, what?
That's how she blew him.
So I guess I got to start fingering his asshole so she stops bringing up my big nose.
Go on.
As soon as I engage in consciousness.
Go on. What did she do? Enlighten us.
She said usually she would call him on his way to work and complain about what he did, but instead... she sent him flowers and said, I know you're stressed. That's why you probably insult me.
She should have got in the car, taken the kids and left.
She's like the most bend up. She's like obviously being abused. She's like, I was tired of being punched in the face. I
was tired of being abused every single morning. So I started sending him flowers and telling him I loved him.
That was a pretty good, solid comment about how my body looks like a Tums bottle.
Jim has written this book. This is not Michelle.
Yeah, and she says this is because, like Pavlov dogs, men are conditioned to respond in the same way to the same inputs. So like if you're doing one thing that doesn't work, like men don't even like think about it. They just respond with like anger or something. So you got to break that chain of response and do something different. and then men might reflect on like what they've been doing.
I go back to what I said at the beginning, which is what it must be costing these women and their hearts and their souls. I'm sure it works, but like,
you want to be with someone that understands you, preferably, not to be like, oh, he insults me in the morning. I'll just bend over backwards until he loves me.
I'll make him happy. Like,
so there's another example of this, and she actually got this one from a man.
Oh.
And it kind of makes sense if you read the example. So the man and his wife were having arguments, and it wouldn't like turn out. They would leave each other like mad with each other. So he decided to do something different, and he said to his wife, "Hey, next time we argue, let's take off our clothes and see what happens." And
wait, what?
Sorry.
Can you repeat that? Because that was too. What
next
did
time
you
we
just
argue,
fucking say with your mouth?
Next time we argue.
Instead, let's start taking off our clothes when we start.
So have
arguing.
you guys ever had sex in the middle of an argument? Though it is pretty fucking awesome because you go from like a hit, and then you also know like this has to be so good she loves me again.
Yeah.
Like I have to. This has to be so good she like gets over the fact that I forgot her birthday.
The advice is just like instead of solving our problems, let me fuck
it out.
Fuck it out. Figure it out.
There is a lot to be said for fucking out.
She's like, so why don't you like my mom? They're like, how about you give me a blowjob?
Then that's the thing. Then you'd start picking arguments, wouldn't you?
Well, I'd fight every goddamn.
Exactly.
That's what we had. I just wake up.
You're
like, sleep like that? What are you doing? Yeah.
Take your clothes off when you argue back.
Insulting her in the morning. He wakes up horny. He just wants to fucking.
Also, if your like girlfriend approached you and was like arguing, and you're like, "Hey, take off your clothes." I don't want to hear what you. Like that's not.
Wait a listen.
Let's get to the holes, okay? Enough of the yapping, more of the sapping on my penis.
Another technique you can do is do a 180, and she mentions she learned this technique from this guy who taught provocative therapy, and this is like when a therapist who has depressed patients go in and talk about their reasons for being unhappy. They agree with them and then make fun of them, and they're supposed to.
Just my stand-up.
That's something your therapist does to you?
Yeah.
Imagine being like suicidal and you're like, I just feel like
your therapist is like Don Rickles or something.
Yeah. Like, I'd kill myself too if I were you. And you take a swig from a drink, you're like, fuck. I got to talk to you for a whole hour? Like, how does that help anybody?
No, that's nuts.
Yeah. I just think she's packaging up, because she gives examples, but I think she's just packaging up the stupid reverse psychology thing. Because she says, like, an example is like a woman's tired of her man coming home late, so instead just tell him to stay out as late as you want with your friends.
Well, that just sounds like a defeated thing. Well, like, he just comes home at 2 a.m. and she's just sitting there drinking a drink. And
No,
like,
I agree with that. You do tell them to stay out with their friends because then you go out with yours. Like,
yeah, that's also. Why don't you just have a fucking life?
I don't understand.
Have a fucking life.
This whole thing is like getting them to come home.
He goes out and has
home.
Yeah.
Like,
he goes out and has fun on a Friday. So go out and have fucking fun. Why don't you go out and do something?
Your friends, like.
But also, if someone said they're like, no, stay out longer, then I'm automatic. You kind of because a lot of women do that.
Yeah,
kind
we
of
do that.
That's stupid because
a lot of women do this.
Then make your own fucking plans.
If
me and my friends have had plans for a fucking week to go out on Friday, you do not get to make me feel guilty about going.
I totally agree.
You do something. Have your own fucking life.
There's nothing better than that what you just said while you're holding a beer. Like it's just perfect for you to be like, and then you don't get to.
As there's a woman with a black eye behind me, you don't get to try and tell me how to live my goddamn life.
Also, you just recognize that stuff like right off the bat.
That's
like
totally,
it's
I think the problem is men. I think are a little bit more. I mean, she likes to say dumber than dogs,
but they're direct.
I think
they're more
direct
direct
and upfront. And
if a guy was upset, he'd be like, "Hey, why
are not?" And sometimes that could be where it happens. Is like, I don't even know why you're upset. And if you told me, then I could
we could have
change.
avoided the whole thing.
But if you're just passive aggressive and shitty, and then you say like it comes out other ways, and you're screaming at me, and I'm like, well, you never told me that.
Exactly.
How the fuck am I supposed to know?
If you're a girl, if there was some guy you were jealous of that your girlfriend was hanging out all the time, you'd just be like, hey, I don't like that guy. Right? You would be direct.
Well,
whereas she would do
I'd find ways to slowly undercut.
But she would be a little bit more direct instead of doing some manipulative kind of behind the back. Well, hang out with Jeff then. I bet you like it.
I think I've said that.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Talking to a shell of a person.
Yeah, no, I'm not really, man.
Yeah. And so another example she gives on this is that one lady was tired of telling her husband to hang the wallpaper over and over again. So instead, she told him that she probably overestimated his ability to hang wallpaper.
But see, that's just being
and was
shitty
probably not the best person for the job.
That's a mean thing to say. I wouldn't say that to my friend.
You don't go, I overestimate. You go, I'm really sorry. I have been bothering you about this. And then you hire someone to do it for you. And it's wonderful.
See, that would be
that's
more
better.
But as opposed to
being overestimated your ability. What the fuck is
I'm sorry I expected you to be able to hang something. I clearly didn't know that you are just such a brainless, useless moron.
Like
if you can't make me come, why could you hang up the wallpaper? You can't do anything, Jim.
Or, ladies, you could learn to hang the wallpaper yourself.
Why is the onus on Jim to do the dishes?
It goes in like a weird.
You know, is she making eye contact with Jim?
Yeah, it's almost like super anti-feminist because like you have to expect guys. Why don't you learn to hang?
Also, I didn't find this very like female self-help. Like female self-help is learn to hang the wallpaper. Like that's female self-help. Like
this is kind of male self-help.
This is kind of
if you read this book, she's just basically like, learn to give good blowjobs and everything will fall into place. Like
that is the saddest thing I've ever heard.
Is that a wrong statement, though? That is a correct statement.
It is true for the fucking wrong reason. That's why I hate it.
Yeah, but if a man wrote that would be like
no, they'd be all. But yeah, I mean, she's a hero.
But no. If you gave me 4 blowjobs every single day, I'd be like, I'll hang fucking wall. I'll build a house. I'll build a fucking home from scratch. Give a shit.
Just me and Guamin, like, we're cutting down trees. Just out here cutting down trees.
And the next technique she says is take action, not use words, because men don't understand words.
They don't understand words because they're dogs. Yeah.
Yeah, because they
don't understand words.
How much of this could just be fucking Nazi propaganda if you changed men for Jews? Like honestly, like fucking
use
honestly.
actions.
If you're just like action, ready, aim, fire. They don't understand words. They're dogs, a vermin in our country. Like it's a little all right.
So she gives an example like this one lady, her husband would always come to the dinner table without his shirt on, which
which also
I love Jim. Jim is one of my favorite people I've ever met.
Jim wakes up in the morning shitting on her. He's like, there's only 2 times you want to have sex when I don't want to. Shows up, beer belly hanging out like, you know what? Do you pay the fucking rent? That's what I thought. I work all goddamn day. I'll take my shirt off.
Jim's a fucking fun guy. He's
probably
he's hanging out. He's playing with the dog. He's cracking jokes. He's shitting on you. He shows up. What's for dinner? Spaghetti. I go, so I'll use my stomach as a plate. Like this guy's fucking awesome.
Yeah, she said
we're having Jim on the pod next week.
No talking worked, so she decided to go to the dinner topless.
Yeah.
And on seeing her, he turned white as a ghost and immediately put on a shirt.
Who the fuck would do that? Who the fuck would do that?
If I went to the dinner table topless and the guy I was with went white as a sheet and ran out the room, there are bigger problems.
She showed up naked and we all ran out of friends. We were all vomited and ran out. You would have an eating disorder that rivals any Hollywood star.
I would be devastated.
That would be the new rule. The first time you show up, we're having topless dinner. That is how in this home we eat spaghetti with no fucking clothes on. That's what we do.
She takes her shirt off. He just throws up all the spaghetti. You
show up with a bra on. What the fuck are you?
There are bigger problems in this relationship than communication, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh God.
He's like, why do they both droop like that? Oh
God. It's been 27 years.
You're in the fucking spaghetti, for Christ's sake.
Her final example is basically, if nothing else works, then keep him happy sexually.
You just said that like 8 times. You just said that like 9 fucking times. The whole thing is just fuck men. It's the only way for them to act like human beings.
Also,
which is kind of probably unfortunately true.
This is awful.
She says, if you want your man to be happy and be nice to you, keep him happy sexually.
No. Do you know what I love about this book? No, opposite. What I hate about this book, none of it is spoken about how to keep a woman sexually happy in a relationship.
She's not talking about her at all.
She's not talking about her sexuality.
Why is it her? It's not her fault for anything.
No. What does she want? Hey, Michelle, what do you want? What do you want here? Like, you're talking about getting Jim to do the dishes and giving him blowjobs to get you a bit of
what a simple thing.
What do you want, Michelle?
I'm going to, because a blowjob is a lot. A blowjob is, I'm going to suck a human penis.
She's basically turned herself into a sex slave for Jim.
And at no point has she even set out her mission statement. Like, I am going to get what I want, which is insert here. So how I'm going to do this is Michelle's just walking around giving blowjobs and watching the plates.
She's basically attached herself to Jim's dick while Jim's enjoying life. She's just
trying not to look at the dog.
Jim's living the best life. He's like,
I'm
He's probably talking to all his friends. He's like, dude, I come home, I play with the dog
angle?
for 30 minutes. She blows me. I go to sleep. I
insult her. She blows me. I say nice things. She blows me.
He's at the bar like, dude, no way. He's like, dude, I'm telling you. I come in, I wash the dishes, I get a blowjob, I go to bed.
His friends come over to their house like, hey, fuck you, Michelle. Fuck you. And she's like, there's no other way. And she's just like a foreman in a blowjob factory going from one to the other like blah, blah, blah.
I see her naked. I say, ugh, gross. And she blows me.
No, this is a sad story for women.
This is awful. This is so sad.
Because we found it on because we're like, we need a women's perspective. And we read probably the most sexist book we've had on. Even the men's rights shit is not as prevalent of like, how do you save a relationship? Become a sex slave. Don't look at yourself.
Treat him like a dog.
It's like, and it's basically like, what do you want? Like, it's basically like, oh, just treat me with some mild respect.
Yeah.
And in return, I'll completely bend over backwards and change who I am as a person.
Literally bend over backwards.
Bend over anything. I'll bend over anything.
So this is a
if you
sad.
do the dishes.
We're sorry. This is sad. We were like, I didn't hear about this book.
I thought there were going to be larger goals too. Like, oh, how do I get Jim to like my parents? How do I get Jim to get along with my sisters? Like, how do I get Jim to
These are all
dishes?
basic shit a person could do. I feel like the bar is set so.
Jim is 57 fucking years old. Tell him to wash the fucking dishes.
The bar is set so low for men. I feel like in terms of because like there's so many like just shitty asshole men. They like just go out and they ruin most things that like it's like he washes the dishes and listens to me and it's like that's what people should.
No, but you know what? One of the
that's like default.
That's a good roommate.
Yeah. I do that with fucking just people I know. You know.
I had a guy say to me recently, he's like, when you start a relationship with a new girl, you basically spend the first 2 months undoing all the damage that the previous guy's done.
I 100% believe that.
And I was like, that's really interesting. He's like, absolutely every relationship ever been in the first 2 months, are you just undoing all the stuff the last guy did?
That's how I feel about, yeah.
Yeah.
I believe that because, maybe also I probably date people that are damaged.
Yeah.
But also, but like.
Love me a damaged one.
But you're also like kind of because of some women, it's almost like talking to like a Syrian refugee where it's like, oh, my old boyfriend, he used to go mad at me and scream when I did that. And I'm like, no, we're in America.
We're not going to do that.
We're free here. You know, we don't need to, we don't, you're safe, okay?
Assad said I couldn't stay out past 9 p.m. We're like, no, I'm fine.
No, it's gone. He's like, back in the old country, wasn't able to have fun.
In Damascus, I always had to have dinner ready. You're like, I'll just get Chinese.
Michelle's second husband's going to get an absolute delight.
Yeah. The problem is like the man
Michelle?
would probably change if he just told him like, listen, I'm unhappy. I wish we would hang out more and have fun. And the man would be like, yeah, that makes sense. I love you. But then she goes about it in a covert way where she'll just have sex and it's like, you'll get what you want, but you're putting like work smarter, not harder. You know what I mean? You're literally working overtime here.
Yeah, when does Jim go down on Michelle? That's what I want to know.
Probably never.
And that's why it annoys me because it is true, but it's true in like such a shitty like it's true enough. If you want to go in the primal way, like if you blow guys, will do whatever the fuck you want. But also like
but it's completely
I'm not a fucking
female
ape.
agenda.
You can't like talk to me as a person.
It's true that it'll work, but it's like the worst way to go.
Which is why Gone Girl is the greatest female self-help book of the last 20 years.
It's horrible, and I do not forget what you said earlier. You wronged that man. You were a monster.
Oh yeah, you brutalized.
Anyone who's with you should be afraid of you.
She got what she wanted.
You were putting on makeup to fuck someone else while someone was crying on the phone.
No, this is good. We had a T-Rex on the podcast.
Yeah, I did do that.
Nature's most horrific predator was on the podcast.
In this part, she like really goes into. She says, like when women ignore their partner's sexual needs, men feel rejected and angry, and as a result, they shut down, do little around the house.
That's actually kind of true.
That's actually true.
Days pass with them just saying, pass the salt.
Yeah, that is true.
So if having a better sex life yields a more loving man, it's a wonder women don't do everything they can to keep the love lights burning. So next time you notice you're not getting through to your man, ask yourself, when was the last time you had sex?
I feel like it's like some of your self-esteem is wrapped in sexuality. I think.
Because I'm dating a girl and she doesn't fuck me, I think like, oh, maybe she doesn't like me, maybe I'm ugly. Yeah, that kind of shit hurts.
That's what I think. Like if somebody's like, I'm with somebody, you're tight, and like don't have sex, like you're saying, you just think I'm ugly, and you don't.
Yeah, it makes me feel like you're just going through the motions. Yeah, you just. So it's like you don't want to fuck me. You don't have the passion. You're just going through the motions. So I guess I'm just going to do the same thing.
Yeah, it's not about like you need a blowjob all the time, but it's like it's the validation of something like I like you.
But I know that someone wants to fuck me. That's what I like that a woman is like I want to have sex with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at some point, if like what is like ignoring like a partner's sexual needs versus like one time you might not want to have sex, is it okay for a man
That's
just
fine,
to get
but if it's a thing where
kind of like pouty and like
when you hear about like those marriages where
but to be fair, have you as a young man never done that? Have you never?
What's the longest you and your girlfriend
not
have
like
gone
in a
without sex?
shitty way, but like you want to have sex, she didn't, and you were like,
Yeah, but that should be on me. That shouldn't be on her to be like, oh man, I should have had sex with him. Now he's just a nightmare.
What's the longest you and your girlfriend have gone without sex?
Like if she was away somewhere, or like
no, that's not what I asked. Like in your home.
like living here normal.
Probably like 3 days or so.
Yeah, cool. So imagine that
Like
you
a
guys
month,
are
like
together
2 weeks.
and you guys.
Going on a month.
No, I was gonna say that. Yeah, those relationships. Yeah, imagine you guys haven't fucked in like 3 months.
She
would
she
you
has
would
probably
feel bad, though,
she
right?
probably
Would you
has
not?
more of a sex drive
Yeah,
than
I was
do.
going to say I'm more of a sex pest in relationships than
Yeah,
the guy is.
she would be mad
Sure,
first
anybody has more
before
of a
me.
sex drive than a little android, but for normal
that's just
men,
because you
for
don't feel
normal
love.
men,
But-
if you don't fuck for like you feel that you
Yeah,
feel
you
hurt.
Well, I feel like if I was in a
Especially
relationship,
'cause
for, like,
we need
if
to
I
fuck-
live with someone for like a week, I've also probably tried to have sex at one point.
She
during
is
that
also
week,
like like you said, like you're probably the more sexual
Yeah,
person in your
always am.
relationship,
But
but
you don't think that's like an outlier though, because
No,
most
no,
women, like you
I-
were saying
I-
earlier,
yeah.
most women can like go a little bit longer without sex. For
Yeah,
a
they
guy,
can, yeah.
you want to have sex a lot, and part of that is like even if you just hook up with a girl at a bar, it's like, oh yeah, I'm the guy. And if you're in
I
a
feel like
relationship,
sex is almost
you-
like XP points for men. Like
Yeah.
when I'm talking, it's almost like, oh, I had sex with this person. It's almost like built like they have this like throne of respect with other men, and so when you don't get laid, it really
And in
it feels
relationship,
like
it's
the
not even
world
that-
telling you like you are nothing.
yeah.
you
but
know?
things like this book do deny like women can be the more sexual
Yeah, they
person
do.
in a
It's
true.
partnershort.
Because that's what I mean. That she's
And
making
they are
it saying it's for
sometimes,
them.
yeah.
It's for them. You're like, well, that doesn't make. The reason I think sex is so important is it's not just because how it feels like biologically, but for me, the reason it's the most important thing in the relationship is because it's the only time where you're both so honest, like 100% honest and naked and vulnerable and trusting of the other person. Like, I can manipulate my way, as we discussed, out of literally any situation in the world with like words. You can be passive aggressive. You can say things you don't mean to get the result you want. When you're having sex, you can't with that stuff. Like, you know, if you really know a person, you know if it's when you're both in it or when one of you isn't or when one of you's not
you
quite
can really
bringing
tell
it.
if someone's like distant.
You know if you're not both exactly on the same page at the same time in sex. And that's why it's the most honest point of any relationship. And I think that's why it's the most important thing, because the other stuff is all layers. It's just layers of either like talk or behaviorisms or insecurities or defensiveness, but all that's gone when you're having sex. All that stuff gets taken away and it's just like literally two animals like being vulnerable to at each other, if anything. Not a monster.
Yeah, there's a little spark of humanity there. I mean, it's surrounded by evil.
Did any of that
There's a
go
little bit
through your
of
head?
humanity right at the
Did any of
bottom.
that go through your head when you ruined a promising rugby player's career?
Yeah. I really, yeah.
I gave him chlamydia on purpose.
Jesus.
Yeah,
Did
that
you
was-
really?
Yeah.
What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, I did that.
Why are we talking
No,
to
I
you?
did
You're
that.
bad. You know what?
Fucking
Men are
serial
okay.
killer.
Yeah, but the whole time, I am more reaffirming my already beliefs. Because the whole time, it's like,
God.
men are evil. You're a serial fucking killer.
You gave him
You're
chlamydia? You ruined him.
You robbed a man of his humanity.
He is, dude. He is in London right now, sucking crack. He's sucking dick for crack. That is what he's doing.
So she ends the book saying, "Start your own man-changing group."
Oh my.
Democratic Party of the United States of America.
I call mine Twitter.
Yeah, I call mine the fire.
She says, "One night after working on this book, I had a dream. I envisioned women from all backgrounds coming together, and instead of complaining or analyzing things to death, they would meet in small groups to brainstorm effective strategies for changing their men."
No, why would they meet and talk
That's
about their
funny.
careers?
That
or
is
what
hilarious.
they're
No,
doing?
why can't you
or
be a
what they
person?
did?
Yeah.
Why would
Let's
they all
get-
get
hey,
together
let's-
and talk about their men?
I like how she starts off too, like using like Martin Luther King's
Yeah, I
like,
have a dream.
I have a dream that all women of all races will come together to talk about changing
Men.
their men.
About men.
Just to serve their men, basically.
To talk about how to give their men
That is
blowjobs.
heartbreaking.
Yeah, at no point it's like, why don't you talk about what you want? Because I think best relationship is when you're both solid. Like, okay, I have my thing.
Yeah, you
I'm
have your
stable and okay.
thing.
I don't need you to survive. Because
Yeah.
I mean, so I have like an ideal of not being
Yeah.
codependent. I will be, and
Yeah.
will probably continue to be forever. But
You
like,
will.
ideally, you shouldn't. You should be like, I'm solid. We're together because this is fun. This is a better thing than not being.
But that's really interesting because I've always thought that. I've always said, like, I've never ever, I remember my last boyfriend saying to him, like, I don't need you. Just know that I don't need you. I want you an awful lot and I love having you around. I love you, but I don't need you. I remember my mum turning around to me afterwards and being like, well, that's where you lost him, isn't it? She's like, men have to be needed. She was absolutely appalled that I'd said, I don't need you. And she was like, no, men have to be needed.
Yeah, I mean, I feel
And I
like
was
I have
like-
to be, but I need the other. But this is unhealthy. But
that's what
I
I
need
think.
the other.
But do you
this
still-
is it? No, it's the root of all evil, because you're like, you can't actually be honest because you're afraid of losing that person. And then you become her. Then you become bending over backwards. And then no one respects a doormat. No one respects someone
who you know needs you. But then if a woman turned around to you in a loving relationship was like, I don't need you, would it be like dagger to the heart? Or would you be like, no, legit, good for you? Like,
depends on the tone. If you said that in like, if we were having like a normal, healthy conversation,
if you're in the middle of an argument,
if in the middle of an argument, I'd be like, okay, this hurts. Right? But there is
in the middle of an argument, that's like breakup material. In the middle of an argument, if you're gonna say something,
but if you told me like we're both sitting down having a conversation, you're like, no, I'm with you because I want you. I don't need you, which is better because you want to be like two people that are together instead of.
I think that's a healthy thing to have. You shouldn't need I think saying that to someone.
That's what my mum said. That's exactly what my mum said, and I was like, that's really interesting because I thought that was a really nice thing. I thought that was a really kind thing to say, was to be like, I don't need you here because I need your boyfriend.
If you know
you would have to be in a deeply smart conversation.
Yeah.
Because I feel that is such a thing that's so easily to be
that
taken
would so depend on the person, really? But it's like I think it is just a polite thing.
Kind of like a shitty tone or like pretending the context. Like if we're just gonna drive and someone's, I don't need you. Most contexts is, I'm assuming that's a negative statement. That's like, I don't need to.
It's
be
just
with
not.
You.
It's impolite to say that. You shouldn't say that from a politeness
point of view. Also, I feel like
I
should kind of know that, right? Like if we're both in a solid, healthy place, and you're out,
it's a healthy thing to think.
I'm doing my thing, and we're together just because we want each other. I should just know that, like, if I broke up with you, you wouldn't
be like a heap of mess on the floor.
You know, you're probably fine. Like I feel like in a healthy relationship, I've never been in one, so I have no idea. I'm just talking about like Jupiter. I have no fucking clue.
That would be a thing. Like if you were together for like 10 years and you were just like, if you were that honest and that open with each other, you would just talk.
I mean, like in the middle of like a month, if we've been talking for like a month.
We're 6 months in, and you're like, I don't need you.
I would definitely feel insecure. I'd be like, what kind of want you to?
What the fuck is wrong with you?
I'm just like, what? Because like if she fell down some stairs and she's like, I need you to help me walk around. Like in my head, I'm like, security. All right, like she's not going anywhere. God damn it. Like the last time I had like a drunken one night stand hookup. And there was the thought in my head definitely where I was like, if I got her pregnant, right? She'd have to talk to me.
Forever.
She'd have to talk to me. Like I would secure another meeting, and that would be
great.
Worry,
girls do that all the time.
Huh?
Girls do that.
I don't know. I might have a little bit of evil woman brain. I don't know.
All right, so you think you'll go out with this knowledge we gave you and start your own man-changing group?
Club.
Man-change club.
Oh my God, I hope not.
She's going to start her man-change club, but it's just going to be showing Gone Girl to all the men. that's just...
Wouldn't it be funny if this was my man change club and you'd all be manipulated?
Actually, that's
we're gonna
like
go
Cole starts reading it, and then we're all just like, well, I don't know. Wait, how was your day?
Yeah.
Like in the middle.
Shit, did we look at Hatty enough during that
We're all just staring at her like, no, it's almost like. But I mean, the whole time I've been talking about, how do you feel? Why is this my podcast? Why is it your podcast?